All right, guys. So, Steve, you want to go first? You want to fire away with your questions, and then we'll dive into them a bit?
I guess the first question I really have is trying to validate a two-sided market in concentrating on one or over the other because the value is going to be created because of the usage by, in my case, small businesses. And the challenge I'm finding is in reaching them, they're the unknown in terms of where they are and kind of where they're hanging out versus the other side of this is the large financial institutions that want to have access to them. And reaching and talking to them is fairly straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to figure out tactically the best way to go about getting those business owners in front of me.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, it sounds like you're focusing on the right side of the two-sided market, right? The unknown and the difficult one is where you want to start. Um, so, what sort of stuff have you tried so far, and what gives you the sense that it's not working?
I tried a landing page in which I put paid search ads against it to get people to fill out a form.
Okay.
And what we found is that the people that were converting off of it were primarily looking to start a business, so it really wasn't even attractive to the financial institutions we wanted to go after.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The second thing I've done is contacted the business development centers, which are funded by the Small Business Administration. Most major college universities have one of these, and I've had at least a dozen who are willing to put out a flyer or postcard or business card when anyone comes in because they usually work with established as well as new businesses looking to raise money, and they're willing to do some kind of a somebody comes in, hand it out to me so I can then interview them. So I think you kind of responded, Justin, a little bit to what I should put on that because in essence I can't guarantee they're going to get funding. I just want to be able to interview them and find out kind of where they're at with it and if a tool like what I'm proposing would eventually solve some of their pain. So
Gotcha. Gotcha. And now, so is that what's the problem with that strategy? Is it not working right now?
I just got it and I haven't been able to figure out the best way to phrase or put something together that's going to be attractive enough for them to contact me. So I'm not so worried about just trying it. It's more a question of what to put on, like
I see.
how to do that. In our group, Gavin recommended trying to also find out people who've been rejected because the statistics are pretty daunting. Like 8 or 9 out of 10 are rejected from getting money.
Hmm.
So, but you have to have a relationship with those that are rejecting them to find out who actually applied, to find out why or how they were rejected. That would actually be probably the gold group in the bunch because they've got immediate pain of being basically turned down, so or
Right.
rejected. Um, I haven't really, I guess, figured out a best way to reach a bank and say, let me talk to all the people you reject. Um, I don't even know if there's a law that lets them tell me that with the way they're so regulated. Um,
Hmm.
so that's
Interesting. So, okay, so two things to note. One, this on the flyer folks, I think there's some interesting stuff to talk about there. I also think there's some interesting stuff to talk about on the rejection side. Which one should we head towards first?
I would like to talk about rejection first.
Gotcha. Okay, so who are the guys who were rejecting these people?
You're typically a what's considered a loan officer of some kind at a bank, and they are really almost an account executive for the bank. So there's a whole group of people in the bank that have actually declined the person, but this will be the front man. This will be the one that actually deals with the business as it walks into the bank,
Mm-hmm.
works with all the bank's departments, and then eventually comes back and gives the corporate message of rejection or whatever the you know reason
Right.
for that is.
Gotcha. Now, are and who's the people that you are looking to serve as ultimate customers on the banking side or the lending side?
Business that has 10 or more employees does at least 2
Sorry,
million.
I mean on not the business side, but the banking or lending side. Is it the same person?
It would be the same person because their goal is to do loans because they're paid on that, and so their motivation is to have more deals. So I would be
Okay.
giving them more deals, or I would be finding them more deals.
Okay. Now, help me understand if there's a relationship here. There's accelerators, like startup accelerators.
Hmm.
They get inundated with people who are applying for to be part of their accelerator program, and but the biggest problem that accelerators have is that they don't get enough highly qualified startups to be part of their program.
Yep.
And so they get lots of startups, but not highly qualified ones. So what I've seen them actively do is they will say, "Hey, look, these are people who we're rejecting. I would love to point them somewhere to help turn them into companies that we would go and eventually accept." So they're really excited about this idea. Is there any parallel there between that world and maybe what these loan associates do?
When I talk with the loan people, the problem, or I should say, the thing they do not want are startups. They don't
Yep.
want anything that's got less than really 2 years of business records because it's very time consuming, and the ratio of those getting funded is very small for them. So when they tell me their ideal customer, they want somebody who's got 2 or more years of business history and revenue and employees, because those are the ones that they can go and get multiple sources for and make more money from. So startups are really not attractive to them, and there's actually a lot of tools for banks to get leads from startup founders or people who are wanting to start a business, whether it be websites or franchises that'll come to them and say, "This guy wants to start a
Yeah.
franchise in your town." Or
Sorry, Steve. I'm just gonna interject. I didn't mean a parallel in the actual
oh,
customer segment. I meant a parallel in that these guys, while they are rejecting them, they would love to have them come back and be basically, can you serve the banks by understanding and getting connected to their rejects? As in, would you be doing them a favor? Would you be solving a problem for them by interviewing their rejects?
I don't know, Justin. I hate to say I'd be speculating.
Uh-huh.
It's definitely worth asking them to find out, because at the end of the day, they're going to want to have that deal done in the future as well. It's their future business. So yeah, I would imagine that there's a value in having someone at least, because they're not going to do it. Yeah, I would. If I'm thinking out loud about it, I'm going to say that they're going to at least want somebody to come and interview them, and then possibly give them that feedback, and or because I'm a third party, so I don't run the
Mhm.
risk of their regulations and rules and
Right.
formalities that
Right. Right. Right.
um, and for them it may save face because most of the banks, if it's a bigger bank, their deal flow usually comes in house anyway, so this business already has a checking account or some relationship with the bank, so
Mm. Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
they'd save face on the back end by saying, hey, sorry it didn't work out with us, but go talk to these guys, maybe they can help you.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, if that's really true, you may be able to talk to your existing customers, the one you already have relationships and lenders, and say, hey, look, I know that you have these problems. You have this problem around not getting enough highly qualified folks, and you want to save face if you don't, blah blah blah. To help make sure that I'm building the right platform, are there a handful of people you've worked with who you didn't decide to give a loan to that you might be willing to introduce me to so that I can understand their pains and and help them out?
I think it's definitely worth talking to them because that's in having that conversation. Try to have them encourage, like invite me in or provide
Right.
access, because that's going to be the shortest way to get to the root problem or the people that are paying.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I think that's a conversation worth having. We'll see what they sort of roadblocks they put up. But I would definitely try and frame whatever it is that you want from these banks around a way that you can help them solve their problem. So now that you know what their problems are, offer talking to the rejects as a way to solve one of them.
I'm writing that down. All right.
Cool. All right. Well, so that feels like a good place to transition. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on real quick?
No, I think that's for me right now. The biggest thing. I have more, but we can circle back to me if you want to.
Yeah, let's try that. We'll go hit up on some other folks, and then we'll circle back around, and then see how it goes. Sound fair?
Yep.
Cool. All right, Simon, what's up, my friend? How can I be of service?
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing great.
Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. I think for me, probably I'm a bit premature in terms of something specific. I just wanted to join the call first of all to see how these particular Hangout itself would work. But
Sure.
If I was to kind of raise the questions which I currently have, so I obviously posted a comment on Facebook around similar to what Steve was saying. Again, obviously working on a two-sided market itself, trying to figure out, obviously I've got the consumer sides and I've also got the business side. Now I've also done initial customer interviews with the consumers and also done interviews with the business side. And the business, every time I do ask the questions, I am starting to hear the same types of problems, which are more or less effectively giving me some of the information, some of the kind of telltale signs to say, okay, I might be on the right track here. So now it's more or less now I'm considering moving to the next step, which I think obviously your proposal of doing solution-based interviews rather than sales pitches is probably a better way to actually look into how obviously to move to the next step. So really my question, so I don't really have a question yet per se on that particular area, so I'll probably need to look at your blog and take a bit more in depth in terms of how I can structure my solution interviews. The question which I really have for you is then on the other side market. So I'm going to devise in the next few days a test or some hypothesis tests to validate from the consumer side, so really take it to a next step. So on the consumers, I've been doing interviews, speaking to them in a bit more in depth. Now, really what I want to put together is a landing page, which is able to, well, first of all, landing page and also a sample prototype of the solution that I've currently got, and really put it in front of them, and then begin to more or less test to see if they'll actually interact with the proposed solution that I'm actually proposing, and basically use that to test if there is traction with the consumers or if basically they don't see any value from the particular product. So my question for you really was on the determining. So first of all is how would I gain the traffic drivers? And I'm wondering. So what I'm actually considering is having pay-per-click ads or handing out flyers. And obviously, when I hand out the flyers, I'm able to tell people what web address to go to. And obviously, when they go to that web address, they'll be able to see the particular product, be able to browse it, and then see if the customers actually interact with it. Now, my question would be, do you think that in itself will be fluctuating my result set, in a sense, by me actually physically or artificially gaining that traction itself, such as you're obviously having PPC adverts or manually giving out any flyers to consumers?
Yeah, okay, well, so this is cool in that you're thinking about your channels as being a potential risky assumption, and I think that's exactly where you want to be thinking that. If you're validated that there are problems out there that people are actively trying to solve, next step is to go, well, let's go see, can we find these people in a sustainable and eventually scalable way? So I think I like where you're going. And then what usually happens during this phase is people will list out a bunch of the different marketing channels they could eventually use. So you've called out pay-per-click ads. Presumably, you could do it on Facebook, or you could do it on Google, or you could do it on some other platform. Then you talked about flyers, and then people will have other things. Maybe it's forums, or maybe it's in-app ads or something like that. I don't know. But they'll list them all out, and then they'll pick one or two of these channels, maybe up to 3, and then they'll test the return on an investment they get for each of those channels. So you'll want to come up with some sort of success metric, and we can talk about how to define that, but you'll want to come up with some sort of success metric that determines, wait, okay, if I can find X number of people through a particular channel and I can get them to engage with my landing page at a minimum level, maybe it's just get them to go there. All we care about right now is, can we get people to show up on the web page? We don't care what they do once they get there. Then you'll test and say, okay, well, if I send them to the landing page via a flyer, here's how much time and money it costs me to do that. If I do it via pay-per-click ads, here's how much time and money it costs. And if I do it via forums or whatnot, here's how much time and money it costs. And then you'll be able to compare those three against each other to say, you know what, it turns out that it's the flyer that's going to be the best way to get people to show up. I got to figure out, is there a way that I can have people hand out flyers around the country or around the world? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Okay. So effectively, what I'm validating two things then, right? In that instance, in terms of if people are actually willing to find the service useful, first of all, and also what channel I can best attract my core customers with.
Exactly. So you're gonna reflect the problem that you heard during the interview. You're gonna reflect that back to them through the copy that you use on whatever your ad is, be it a flyer or an ad. And then you're going to see, does that ad resonate, and does it resonate to the extent that it gets them to click through to a landing page. And then you just point people to different landing pages. You have a flyer, you have a handout flyer landing page, and you have a Google ad landing page, and you have a Facebook landing page. And maybe they're all the same, they all say the same thing, but you're measuring the click-throughs on each one of those different pages.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that, okay, cool. Well, I suppose the click-through rates versus the actual them taking action will have different matrices in terms of, again, given your conversion rate. So you might have, let's say, 100 people who click through, but might only have, let's say, 5 people who actually then take action, which is, let's say, clicking on the button to request more information itself. So that was effectively my next step in terms of being able to define what exactly the success matrices are for this particular test. Now, also, I was seeing your post on Facebook in terms of, so you effectively work backwards in that sense, where you had your $500 dollar mark itself, and effectively if you have 4 leads or something, effectively that will help you meet your success, your actual key metrics. Obviously that's fine in the sense that you actually know what your core target value is. If you haven't got that core target value in terms of you don't yet know exactly how much a customer is going to cost you, or how much a customer is going to give you in terms of revenue, is there any way how you can define the success criteria without actually knowing how much actual customer will give you back?
It's worth, it's
worth
it. It's a great question, and the truth is, in the example that I threw out there, I don't know how much a customer is worth either. I think I had like a price range that it was worth between $49 and $199, and then I just simply took the average of those. So and just like sort of guess, and that's we're just doing a bunch of educated guesses at this point. But it's we're being smart about it so that we know when to give up, when to fold and when to keep going. So what I would suggest is that you do a little research on how much a customer would be worth to you potentially, and get a range. It won't be between 50 cents and $5 million. It will be something fairly reasonable, and it may have a difference in an order of magnitude, and then maybe just take the average of those two numbers and sort of guess at it, because we won't know until a later date.
Exactly. So I could come up with estimated guesses, because the model that I'm actually thinking about, I have done something similar, which kind of gives me a rough average cost per customer of about, let's say, £10-15 per customer. So effectively, I could use that to work out the actual values.
That's how much it's going to cost you, or how much?
How much potentially I'll get back from each individual. Each individual customer.
Yeah. So if it's between 10 to 15, maybe call it 12.5, and then run your numbers that way.
Okay. So effectively that's most of the questions which I have. I haven't got anything so much in depth for now.
Cool.
I suppose when I've run these, I'll have a whole lot more questions that can bounce back. So yeah.
For sure. Cool, awesome. Well, yeah, you're thinking about it the right way, and once you find if you find a channel that one of those three channels hits your success criteria, then we can go in and start optimizing that channel to see if they'll actually will they give you an email address or will they download an app or whatever, and we'll sort of we'll walk very step by step down through the entire validation chain.
Mhm.
But there's no point in putting together your prototype and putting that all up until we know that we can find these people to actually look at the prototype.
Oh, okay, okay. So you're actually saying don't bother putting the prototype up, just
Exactly.
have test the
Exactly.
channels itself, which is the best. Okay, okay,
Right, right.
interesting,
Um,
interesting.
yeah. Yeah, for what it's worth, don't do this on the website because you'll throw off my experiment. But right now, I have an experiment running on the Customer Dev Labs website where it says, like, I'm trying a different thing on the hello bar that pops up. It says something about like, check out our new interactive video course, and then it has a little button that says video course or something. And I'm trying out different messages to see which one converts the best. But then once people click through, there's just a landing page there, and it has one video and one message, and it's about fake door testing. It describes here's exactly the experiment that you've just been a part of. And so there's nothing
Sorry,
valuable
there's
there.
nothing there.
Exactly.
I was actually going to do that as well. I was thinking, oh, just send them to a landing page, and as soon as they click on, yeah, sign me up, it just comes up. Oops, sorry, you're part of a big test.
Yeah,
It looks
right.
like you fall into the trap.
You can just use a LaunchRock page too if you've ever used LaunchRock.
I've tried to use it once. I mean, it's quite a bit. Yeah, I've tried to use it once.
Yeah, I mean it's super simple and it's got an email
Yeah.
form and you say it's coming soon or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well,
So just quickly before we move away, I mean, how about on the solution based interviews?
Mhm.
What about if your main problem that all your business customers are saying is they want more customers? That's effectively their main key problem, and that's the main key problem that I'll be solving.
Awesome.
Yeah, which is exactly which is awesome. But effectively, I mean, well, my question is, would it be more just focusing then on that specific problem and how the solution itself is going to solve
Yeah.
that individual problem itself?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, you're not selling whatever it is that you're selling. You're selling a way to get more customers.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's me then.
You got it. Cool. All right. Well, stick around.
Okay.
If you have any other questions, we'll open it up again for you.
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Cool. Amaresh, what's up, my friend? How can I be of
Hey.
service?
Hey Justin, yeah. So basically, yeah. So I'm currently at the stage where I'm trying to pre-sell this software that doesn't exist yet, but I have like a prototype, some screenshots, an InVision app mock-up. So
Okay.
I've spoken to about 3 people so far, like who've gotten to the stage where I cold emailed them, and then I got them on the phone, and I ended up getting them to go through a demo with me. So they're all really interested, but when I bring up the money and try to get them to pay for this thing, they all seem to have objections. So I've heard things like, you can't possibly expect me to pay for something that doesn't exist yet. Oh, once it's live, like I really need this, and I can see myself using it, and I will pay you for it. But like, why would I like pay you before like it's built? Then I've heard things like, oh, like I really love your solution, but it's just like not the right time because it looks like there's going to be a lot of like it looks like it's going to take a lot of time to implement it. And there are things like I'm not sure if I can trust that you're going to be able to build it, or like things like what happens if you just run away with my money. So I'm wondering at this stage, is this something like, am I being too ambitious, or is this even like, so for me, like when I went into this, I thought my like validation for me would be to get 5 of these guys to pay for this thing, like pay me 3 months upfront, and they get a lot of benefits. So I'll give them a lot of extra stuff in return for being a part of this pilot program. But am I doing this wrong? Like, is it being too ambitious, trying to have like even think that people would pay for something that doesn't exist yet?
Yeah, good question, and I applaud you for going about this rigorous work because it's scary to try and sell something to someone that doesn't exist, right? So, yeah, and you're at a really dangerous inflection point, right? You're at this point where you're getting lots of really good positive feedback. I love the product. I'll definitely pay you when it's ready. Blah 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 blah. But you're having a hard time getting anyone to actually pull out their wallet.
Exactly.
And have we talked about the difference between early adopters and early majority yet?
I don't believe so. No.
So if you're familiar with the terms early adopter, early majority, late majority, do those ring a
I
bell?
have read it, Crossing the Chasm. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the way that I think about those different categories of people, in terms of sort of problem-focused businesses, the way we're approaching what we're doing, I think of the late majority as people who don't even know they have a problem, right? Sure, you see that they have a problem, but they don't.
Exactly.
I see early majority as people who know they have a problem, but they're not doing anything to solve it.
Yeah.
And the early adopters as people who know they have a problem and they are actively trying to solve it. So if you were going to put the people that you've talked to into one of those three buckets, where would you put them?
I think they're probably somewhere between the last two. So they're definitely not the late adopters. They're somewhere between the early adopters and somewhere between the early majority, because I know that they're aware that they have this problem. They're very interested when I talk through the solution, and when I ask them what their current process is and how their life could be so much better with this software. I can see that their voice changes, because this is great. Like, when can I have it? And then as soon as I tell them that, oh look, like, you can only have it in a couple of months, but I'm still building this. It hasn't been built yet. I'm still trying to validate that this is a problem that enough people have, and it's painful enough that they would pay me for it. So that's when the resistance comes in. So I think they're not entirely like early adopters, because there's still like a lot of resistance. So I need to like talk them through it. But I think I could convert them into I definitely could convert them into early adopters.
What would it take to convert them into early adopters?
I'm not sure. I think maybe just being more persuasive. But
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure. I think a lot of it is hard, because if I was meeting them in person, maybe that gives us a sense of security that this isn't like, okay, this is somebody I can trust. So I've tried telling people that you have my LinkedIn profile and everything, so I'm like somebody legit. Like, if the worst case scenario for you would be that if I don't get enough people on board, that I'm gonna have to refund your money. And that's like, for them, like, it almost seems to me like, for software that's going to bring them like thousands of dollars worth of like added value, $150 seems like a drop in the ocean. But I'm just not sure whether maybe the value isn't being conveyed to them enough. So I'm not really sure like what else I could be doing in terms of like making the proposition more like concrete or more like solid, so that they can see the downside. The downside being, so if this doesn't happen, if I get scammed anyhow, like, I lose $150. But like, the upside is so much greater that it's a risk that it's definitely worth taking. So I don't know whether I need to explain things in those terms. Maybe that needs to be clearer.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so we've got concerns around, this is just all a big scam that we can try and work around. So we can attack the concerns that people have, we can attack the problem that it's solving for them, or we can attack a different group of people, right? But something's got to change. Obviously, it's not working. But let me just say that you're doing the process perfectly. Like, this is exactly how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to run into these obstacles now, not after spending years building shit. So congratulations, you're doing everything perfectly. You're doing it right.
Yeah.
And these are the sorts of problems that we want to hear about now. So that's really exciting to hear. So now we need to figure out, are these the right people? And if they're the right people, are we solving the right problem? If we're solving the right problem, how can we make them trust what we're doing? So what's your instinct? Where would you like to go? Would you want to change the focus of the people? You want to change the focus of the problem, or you want to try and alleviate the concerns that you're hearing people bring up?
So for me, and this is just from things I've heard people tell me about, is that the reward, like, highlighting the reward, is always like the best thing to do in a case like this, because that's what people respond to, rather than the pain.
Okay.
In this instance, so I'm wondering whether I can maybe focus on that a little bit more. So highlight on the benefits of why you should sign up with me today and not 3 months later. So what I want to really, like, the impression that I want to give to these people is that this is a train. This is like moving fast. So you either like get on, like, I'm gonna be gone, whether you, like, I'm not gonna wait for you. So you either like get onto this train while you still can, and you're going to
Okay.
get a whole load of benefits if you do get on the journey. And if you miss out, then you'll still be able to sign up in maybe 3-4 months, but then you'll be paying twice as much as you would now, and you'd be spending a lot more time. Like I don't want to totally like trash like say that it's going to be super hard for you if you don't do it, Rob. But I think like the general feeling that I want to give these guys is that this is something that's like this is happening whether you're on board or not. And if you don't want to get on board, like you're just going to miss out, and I'm just going to continue without you. So I think I just want to show that there's momentum behind it.
Hmm.
But I'm not. Yeah, I mean I could convey it using my words and actions, but I'm not entirely sure if they're like so things I've been considering like I don't have a landing page. I don't even have a landing page yet, so I've been wondering whether maybe having that would maybe add a bit more credibility to this. So I don't know what your thoughts are or on things like that.
Hmm. All right. So landing page is one idea. What is the offer? Is what do I get by joining you now as opposed to waiting 3 months?
So what you get by joining up now is you get discounted rates for the rest of your life. So you get almost like half price as you would pay when the product actually gets released to the public, and you're logged into those rates for as long as you have the product. Then the other benefit that you get is that I'm going to personally implement everything and customize the software like for you. So there could be a fairly so it's an email marketing tool, and it's going to sync to an existing platform. So what I'll be doing is I have a feeling that in the early stages there'll be a lot of concierge kind of stuff that I'll be doing. So just like manually setting up a lot of stuff and implementing all their autoresponders and all the like drip campaigns and all of those things, which I'll be setting up manually. If they're using existing templates in Mailchimp for other things, I'll be manually like porting some of those over so that the templates look good and everything stays like nothing changes. So a lot of that stuff is where I think they'll get real value from. And then the obvious bit is just education. I think what I want to do is not just sell software, but also help educate these guys. And I think being there like early on would mean that I can like give them a lot more attention and spend like actually teach them how to do this right. So I think those are like the main things. But then there are things like I mean they would get yeah. So I think yeah, I'd say those are like the main things. I mean, I tell people that like I'm gonna give you your money back if you don't like what we built. So there's like no risk at all for you. So even after we've built the product and it doesn't turn out to be what you expected, you're gonna get your money back. Maybe that just seems those just seem like hollow words, and maybe there isn't enough to back it up.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I mean, it sounds like you're doing a lot of really good stuff here. I wonder what's the big problem that they cite they have? If I walked up to them and said, "What's
So
their biggest challenge?"
I've heard three different things. I've heard like why would I pay for something that doesn't exist
Sorry,
yet?
what's the big problem that you're solving for them?
So the big problem I'm solving is I'm helping them get more retain more customers or attract or convert more prospects by
Okay.
setting up these automatic like email follow-ups and things that they don't have to do manually. So
Okay. So I wonder, can we take anything from the sort of the Kickstarter world and maybe instead of it's a refund when, if you don't like what we've done, I need your credit card information now, but I'm not going to charge it until we get you X number of referrals or returning customers or whatever the metric is that they want.
yeah.
So I need you to prove that you're interested and you're willing to go do this thing,
Mhm.
but I'm not going to actually run the credit card until we both agree that we've hit this mark, this metric.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is there existing software that'll let me like just pre-authorize?
Sure is. Yeah. So you want software called, I'm going to put it in the chat, but you want a service called trycelery.com,
Right. Okay.
and you can integrate that. You can just make it its own. You can make a product on TryCelery,
Mhm.
and it will give you a product page, and you can just send people there. Like it's as easy as that. If you want to, you can integrate it into a landing page like Strikingly, but you can just do the TryCelery thing, and that will collect their credit card information, but it won't charge them. And you can go in the back end and do that yourself.
Okay, that makes sense. So that is a reasonable trade-off, I think. Then having them pay all the money up front.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, I mean, I originally was also thinking about like maybe I could, if I sold enough, if I pre-sold to enough people, that would essentially help fund like hiring even a developer. But maybe the yeah, there's a middle ground to this, and that is just like having their credit card, having them put in their card details
Mm-hmm.
is a strong indicator that they're interested in the solution that I'm offering.
Mm-hmm.
So that is definitely an interesting.
And you may
Yeah.
even think that play around with your price point,
Hmm.
um, because if they weren't keying off of like, hey, you know what, shit, this thing it's normally $300 and I'm going to get it for $150. Ooh, that $150 is really worth it. I'm going to jump in.
Hmm.
They may find that $150 is a drop in the bucket to them, and they don't care. So
Exactly.
maybe
Yeah.
so maybe you're at different price points. You know, I like the idea of, hey, you know what, this thing is normally $1,000 a month. For people who buy it early, I don't like lifetime, by the way. I don't like
Mm.
this idea of a lifetime. I like the
Okay.
idea of you'll get X number of months for half off.
Okay.
Um, but those won't start until I hit this metric, or
Yeah.
um, um, but I need your credit card. I need and just explain to them, like
Yeah.
just like you know, they know what it's like. They know what it's like to run a business. You know what it's like to run a
Hmm.
business. I don't want to invest in this until I'm proven that
Yeah.
people really that I'm going to have my customers. So I need people like you to just demonstrate that you're willing to pay, but of course you're not going to be on the hook to pay for any results if I can't produce them.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's true. So
Cool.
just kind of yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah. So yeah,
Awesome.
I think
Cool,
it's
man.
a lot of it is just testing and looking at what works.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and like I said, though, you're on a really fine edge, though. We're starting to sort of tweak the success metrics, and we're starting to bend them a little bit. So just be careful make sure that at the end of the day, if you sit back and say, you know what, if I had X number of people sign up for this plan, am I still excited about this company? And if you're not, then let's be honest about it, and let's go make some changes elsewhere.
Sounds good. Sounds like a good plan.
Cool, Amrish. All right, well, great
Thanks,
job. Keep up
Justin.
the good work. Sounds really good. Hey, Farron, how you doing? You are muted, by the way. Farron, you with us? It sounds like no. Okay. Farron, okay. So, hey, Farron, you around? I just saw you
I'm
unmute
on
yourself.
mute.
There
Did I
you
mute?
go. You are perfect. I can hear you now.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I was listening in. I'm at the I have a home inspection app idea that I'm working on,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually had some good interviews today, and I'm trying to figure out. I've pivoted a couple of times, and I'm trying to figure out when you scratch the idea and start over. So I've had like 8 good interviews where they're interested, and then when I try to go up the chain, I get like 0 interest. So right now I've been interviewed realtors, and they're interested. When I go to their
Okay.
broker, which is their boss, for the most part, there's 0 to little interest, and I've got pretty good inroads in real estate, and I can't get much interest on their bosses because I wanted to do a top-down approach, meaning I wanted to have their bosses or their managers kind of push it down to their employees, and I'm getting 0 traction there, and so I'm trying to figure out when to scratch the idea.
Interesting. So why do you think that there's interest in the realtor level, but there's not interest at the broker level?
I think they've got more things on their plate. They're more pressing.
Hmm.
Realtors can see value in it in the sense that they could see it as being a value add for their customers as well as for when they're on site to answer questions and make them look more professional. But pushing from the top down, from the brokers or even educational directors, the people that kind of oversee new hires, I haven't got any good traction on that. And yeah, I've talked to some pretty high level people that I'm actually pretty good friends with too. So I think my next stage is personally I was going to set up a landing page and see if there was a customer, just a home buyer customer, and see if there was a way of getting their interest. But you think that would be the best thing before scratching it all together?
So you're thinking about changing the customer segment, so going from brokers to home buyers?
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
I was really trying to prevent the one-off kind of idea, in the sense that I didn't want to sell a bunch of individual people just transactional software. I wanted to create a subscription model,
Sure.
but
Sure.
I don't know if that's going to work. So I'm trying to figure out
Yeah.
at when to scratch it.
Before we talk about the individual home buyers, have you had a chance to sit down with the brokers? And you mentioned that they have some more high priority things going on in their mind, in their lives right now, or in their work. What sort of problems do you think, or do you know, that those brokers are having trouble with?
The thing I've heard is mostly they're mostly focused on helping them do lead gen, realtors doing lead generation, as well as legal issues in regards to not getting them sued, meaning the broker, as well as the broker manager sued. So it's kind of a legal. That's where they're spending a lot of times on contracts and legal kind of details.
Okay, so lead
more-
gen
they're more-
and legal stuff. Oh, what was that
they're
last?
They're more fearful. They're not more. They're more feared in regards to getting sued than they are of anything else, from what I've seen.
Gotcha. Okay. So in lead gen and legal, if that's their focus, is there anything that you're doing that this app does that solves either one of those problems?
No.
Good to know. Good to know.
Plain and honest, not really.
Yeah.
No.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, then
That's why I
that
love these interviews, man. You learn, crush a lot of assumptions you think you have. You know. I know this client. I know this market. I don't know shit, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good job again. Yeah, just like Amrish, you're doing it right. You're doing it right when we run into roadblocks early. So that's great. So yeah. So this is really good to know that we have people who are interested, but the brokers, the managers, they are. If you heard our description of early adopters, early majority, and late majority, it sounds like the managers are sort of in the late majority at this point. They don't even know that they have a problem, or let alone care that they have one. So there's some sirens going by. I'm just going to mute real quick.
All right.
All right. Okay. So, all right. Brokers, managers. Yes. Okay. So great. So I think you're already onto something. Like something's got to change. We either got to change the problem that we're solving, or we got to change the person we're solving it for, the people we're solving it for. You wanted to go to individual home buyers. That's what you mentioned next. I take it is going to the realtors, the people who are expressing interest themselves. Is there any opportunity there?
There is, I think, but it just doesn't scale very well. It's kind of realtors are constantly getting sold everything under the sun, and from what I've seen, the price points they want to pay is somewhere in the, because I did do kind of a price check, at the $3 to $5 range, and it's a one-time purchase, not a monthly reoccurring. So I'm kind of, I don't know if it's worth my time cycle. I've gone up the most realtors or real estate brokerage companies are their affiliates. So in the sense that the broker doesn't have employees, they got 1099 subcontractors, which are realtors. Okay. And so I've gone to try to do a biz dev with a couple companies that own their actual employees. And I'm hoping that might give me some traction, because I did have some interest at a biz dev standpoint in regards to them using it in-house for their realtors. So I just don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think going individually to realtors is going to be, just that channel is going to be really difficult.
I see. Okay. Okay, fair. Okay, so if we were going to prioritize the customer segments that you could go after now, it feels like, what is it, individual home buyers? Those are on top?
Yeah, I think right now, unfortunately, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and if you're really not excited about the idea at all, then I think now is a great time to for what it's worth, what I do and am doing now is I actually focus less on the product that I want to build, and I focus all of my energy on a segment that I want to serve.
Okay.
So, your call on what steps you take next, you can still sort of like, hey, you know what? I got this idea for a product. I want to keep that at the center of my attention, and I'm going to shift the customer segment so I can still sell this particular product. And that's one way you can go. The other way to go is to say, you know what? It's these group of people that I really love and that I want to serve, and I'm going to figure out the product that they need because it's these guys who are going to get all my attention. So,
Makes sense.
yeah. Do you have a sense? What's your gut say? Do you want to keep trying on this product, or do you want to find a customer segment that you'd love to serve?
I think I'll pivot it once more and see what happens with a landing page and spend a little bit of money on AdWords, because I know this is. I come back to this, and this is maybe my ignorance in the process or my learning in the process. The people will pay me anywhere between $400 to $600, which is like $100 to $150 an hour, to do a home inspection on a property they're considering purchasing. And so what I was trying to figure out is like, oh, there's got to be a way I can educate them before they spend this much money with me, and they'll spend 50, 25, 10, some amount of money where I don't have to show up, where I sell them a class, a product, a software solution, whatever that might be, because they're making a very large life-changing purchase, and it usually hinges on a deal killer home inspection. And so I was just trying to figure out a way into that segment. Does that make sense?
Yes. This approach that you've got of identifying the customer segments. You started with the brokers and then the realtors, and now you're going to go try the actual home buyers themselves. I think it's worth trying. What are your thoughts on starting with interviews again with the home buyers?
Yeah, I was thinking about doing that because I just recently watched your segment with the gentleman that was getting into Techstars on Mechanical Turk. In regards to using Mechanical Turk to do that. I think that's a good avenue to do that, I presume, yeah?
I think that would be, fantastic. Finding people who are in the process of buying a home or who have purchased a home within the last X number of months. I think that's an excellent idea.
Okay, great. Then, that's kind of the area I was going into. So great. I like that. That was a good segment you guys did. I outlined the whole thing. And I like when you talk to them and you reiterate in your own words what they said, because that really helps me take notes, and I appreciate that.
Oh, good. Oh, good to know. That's good feedback for me, and I'll try and do that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Hey, Justin, can I?
Yeah, Steve, go ahead.
Quick question with what Farron's doing too here. I assume that what you just suggested though too, was taking a look at a bigger picture of servicing a market versus trying to service a market with some vague idea of how your product may solve a pain. What I mean by that is, like, he's obviously in the home inspection space and trying to look at that part of it versus if I would imagine you ask the questions that you lay out in Mechanical Turk to an audience, that pain discovery may bring up issues that are way off from what your original thought or hypothesis is on it. So is that kind of what you're seeing and doing that, or is there a way to kind of weave the two together if you really do want to try to stay within your domain expertise in that case?
Oh, okay. So let me make sure I hear your question right. That you're asking is it something along the lines of, if we go to Mechanical Turk, should we be wary of discovering problems that have nothing to do with the area that we want to focus in?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's that's really a quote-unquote risk, but it's like the really good kind of risk. That if we talk to people who are buying a home, or we talk to people who have recently purchased a home, and we find out that, hey, what was the most difficult part about buying a house? And they don't say things like, the home inspection process was too expensive, I didn't get a home inspection and I was nervous as hell about it, I didn't think my home inspector was any good, etc. If they're not saying these things, it's very likely that they're not actively trying to solve those problems. So it's the right thing to do. It's scary as hell because it's very likely they're going to say something else. My real estate agent took 2 or 3% of my, the sale of the house, and so blah blah blah. So, but we really want to know. But you may find that there's a subset of people out there, like do-it-yourselfers with a computer science degree, who have sold a house. Like someone like me, like I sold my house myself because I was so pissed off about the idea of giving someone 3% of the equity of my house, of the value of my house, for doing nothing except putting it in a database. And so like I'm that guy who would go and search on Google like DIY home inspection. Not that I would necessarily believe what I was doing was right, and I'd probably still call in someone else eventually. But if it was in a competitive market and it was a really hot space, and sometimes they give offers, people take the offer that's not contingent on inspection or something like that. So there might be a group of people out there who really are sort of DIY home inspectors. So anyway, that's just, I don't know if that answers your question, Steve, but I want to stop talking for a little bit to make sure that I'm not wandering too far off either of your questions.
No, it did. I was trying to parlay that into trying to say sometimes when you interview, it may be so different than what you were kind of in context thinking about building that it may not, it may give you a result you really don't like to hear, but it's better than building anything and then finding out, there's a gap there. I know, to give you an example, we tried to build a product at one point that allowed you to sell a car in 3 days or less. And we went to Mechanical Turk to do the surveying and say, okay, who just sold a car, blah, 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 and had them answer questions, and almost unilaterally everyone was like, nah, the biggest problem is selling on Craigslist. That was the biggest problem. Like getting my stuff into Craigslist was the problem. Not selling it in 3 days, not selling it in any period of time, not trying to do any of that. It was like getting it in Craigslist and having people respond, and that was like, well, that's a pain we can't. We didn't have very many ways to solve because that's Craigslist, not ours. We abandoned it because we said, okay, that's obviously we're not trying to solve that. We don't have a way to solve that. So
interesting.
I think that's helpful though. That tells me that I might hear what I don't want to hear, but at least I'll hear it fast.
Right? Yeah, you'll hear it. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Slaps into reality.
It's amazing the pattern you hear when you do the Mechanical Turk thing. Like if you keep asking the same format, like you can literally start to see the pattern. Like I did this, I did that, and I had pain here, right? And you just ask the next person, the next person, the next person. It's just like, okay, awesome. Consistently, this is not what I thought it was. So it really sucked, but
that's awesome.
That's pretty much where I'm at. So that's helpful. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is like Steve's idea. It sort of makes me think about, well, what would a solution be? You imagine a service where go take 4 pictures of your car, the front, the side, the back, and the other side, and then upload them to this website, and we'll put your Craigslist, put your zip code or something like that, and then we do everything for you. And we'll go find the make and model, we'll go blah blah blah, the color, we'll write up the description, and then we'll put it out there and then for you to fix, right? So it's another awesome example of a way that if you let's say this thing doesn't work out, Farron, but you do find a customer segment that you really love and want to help, maybe it is home buyers, then you know exactly what their problems are and you get to go solve them.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I think the fast education is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
Awesome interview. So great. Thanks.
Cool. Steve, did you have some other follow-up questions you want to tackle in the last minute or so?
Yeah, I'm talking to business people, and I'm using your kind of outline that you've got. That's kind of what's your role, how do you describe it? And one of the things I'm finding is that we're talking to pretty high-level people within some of these companies, meaning that their picture of what's painful it could be pretty different than a product or a tool could solve. So, for instance, they'll tell me kind of they want to paint everything with roses, and it's kind of like, I did 3 customer interviews this morning with like CEOs and VPs in this industry, and they all make it sound like nothing's a problem. Like no matter how hard we keep bringing up the pain, the only pain they could say was, well, managing people's a pain. I'm like, you gotta have more than that pain in this industry. You can't be perfect. I mean, and so I didn't know if there was kind of a way that you found, because I literally go down your script. The only other one I've added is really at the end of it, if I can't get them anywhere with it, I kind of sometimes will ask, well, if you had a magic wand, what would you wave over it and have just get solved? And, you know, there's no pattern yet to it. There's really no, from an idea extraction perspective, there's no real alignment yet to doing this. I've done this now with about 10 of these guys that are in a space, because during the interviews with customers we have spoken to, they said, well, getting a loan's important, but like I have 10 leases, and knowing what leases are and the rates on the lease is very difficult. There's nowhere to go, there's no place to do the research, there's nothing for me as a business to know that. So we started to look at it and say, these businesses have more leases than loans, there's no real source of information, could we be the source for them to go in and do this? And when you talk to the lease guys, that's the last thing in the world they want anyone to ever do. And so they paint everything like, nope, that's not a problem. No, we don't deal with that. And so it's very difficult to get. There's got to be pain there because their business is out there and they're trying to grow it and do something. I don't know if there's.
Yeah, I to be honest, I got a little confused about the relationship between the leases and the lease guy. But what you're raising is an interesting situation, and one that, to be perfectly honest, I haven't encountered before. Typically, when I'm having the conversations about, hey, what does success look like for you, and then what's the most difficult thing in achieving that success, it's in the context where someone is trying to do something new. You know, like they're reaching out, or I've reached out to them or whatever, because they're having troubles in some sort of new thing that they're trying to do. So, you know, if everything's sort of cooking and going along, I wonder if there are no problems that they're actively trying to solve, or is it just a case that they're not telling you the truth? I don't know.
Well, let me maybe one preface it to it is a lot of times I'll ask them, I say, hey, I don't have anything to sell you. This is not a sales call. I'm not in it to talk to you about buying something I've already made. And then they take a very academic approach. Like they answer it in a very like, okay, this is what my job is, this is our industry. They'll give me a shit ton of information. I mean, stuff like what they just recently were asked to be bought for. I mean, these guys they'll go down that road because they think I'm just academically asking it. But then when you get to trying to like say, okay, what's your pain, what's your point, they kind of stay within that academic context. It's getting them over that emotional side of it and saying, okay, you know, I really hate this. Like, I don't know if there's another question in there that's a segment of saying, like, what are you fighting in your business today? What buckets are the most troubling to you? I don't know if there's another way to. I ask it, you know, in the context of the interview with them, but it sometimes comes out like they just don't want to really get any further with it.
Steve, maybe I could jump in here because I think I might have something that might help you out. So initially, when I was doing some of my customer discoveries, I was, let's say, talking to some of the owners who own, let's say, the retail shops. You know, the people like the founders and the owners themselves, and I did find out that some of them were quite guardy in terms of being able to divulge some of the information. So I was a bit kind of taken back. However, when I then went into the shops, the actual stores, the actual people on the floor, so the managers who were running the stores, I found out that they were actually more forthcoming with a lot of the problems. They were ready to say, yeah, this is a problem, that's a problem, you know, yeah, this is what's actually happening on a day-to-day basis. So I was able to get a whole lot more information from them. So I'm just thinking out loud here that potentially what you could do is maybe go a level down, speak to them, see what the problems are, and then maybe when you then have discussion with the VPs, you can then maybe resound to say, we've heard that these are kind of issues that are happening with some colleagues that we spoke to you guys, and, you know, do you think this sounds, you know, correct within your business, or is that something else, you know, that's not around? So potentially that could be a way. I actually find that going a step down, I was able to get more nitty-gritty information rather than still talking to the high bigwigs.
Wow. Awesome insight. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, that's good. No, that's good. It's a good way to kind of circle the wagons around the guy who's eventually going to hopefully be the buyer of this or sign up for it. So, like you said, he probably doesn't know the day-to-day problems as well as people actually getting stuff done.
Great question, Steve, and thanks so much, Simon, for jumping in. I think that's fantastic. Okay, I'm going to answer one question here from Beth, and her question is, so I've done 20 interviews for customer discovery. Of those, I've identified 13 early adopters. Do I go back to those adopters and ask them for feedback on my landing page, name of the product, more understanding of specific wants, needs, etc.? She basically wants to know what to do next. So this is a great problem to have, right? We validated that we've got a pile of people who are actively trying to solve a problem. The next steps is to validate the next riskiest assumption. So I happen to go in, follow this thing that we've talked about. I talked about in some groups, not all the groups, but talking about the focus framework, and that is. We start off, focus is, F is finding the early adopters, O is optimizing the message and the channel, C is currency testing, U is utility testing, and S is for scale. So after you found your early adopters, great, now we're going to try and optimize the message and the channels through which we find these customers. So whatever words you're hearing, Beth, in your interviews that describe the problem, I would try to outline the different marketing channels that you could possibly use, pick 2 or 3 of them, and start testing. Can you get people to engage with your, at least, your landing page and visit it with some of the marketing material? So let's start testing some of these marketing channels and some of these marketing messages to determine whether or not we can even drive them to the landing page. If we do, then great, we'll move on to testing the actual interaction. Can we get some sort of formal currency from them in terms of either an email address or pre-order sign-up? So that's what feels like what's next to me. If you think that there's another more risky assumption, then that's where I would put my energy. All right, guys. So great job. So great group mentoring for round 1. Thanks so much for coming, and I will hopefully see you guys next week.
Thanks, Justin. Have a great one.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve.